Hello, you guys. How's it going? How are you guys doing today? Ooh, change the camera. What's up, blue 6 and 6 black 6 roses? That's a hard name to say. What's up? Hey, Patrick. How's it going? Hey, Katie. Thanks for joining. What's up, Zess? Zess the commenter. Or you are a commenter. You made a comment. Oof. Yeah, how you guys doing? Oh no, it's the boba shortage continues. I actually did get boba the other day. But I was lucky. So I was going to this one boba place with my brother. We're just, going around trying to see if there are places with boba that haven't run out yet. We went to Teaspoon, if you guys know Teaspoon. We went to this one place, and I went up and I asked him, like, are you guys out of boba? Like, is there a shortage? And he's like, yeah, there's a shortage. Looks like everyone, like, there's a shortage all over the where I live, which is the West Coast. And yeah, he's like, they've heard that it was going to last for like 3 to 5 months or something like that. So yeah, so it's probably until the end of summer that things will get back to normal. Yeah. And I was like, oh, I was so sad. I expressed extreme sadness. But then he says, but you know what? For you guys, I'll give you guys some boba. That's right. I don't know why. Maybe because of my charm. But he's like, yeah, you know what? For you guys, I'll give you guys some boba. But not for anyone else. So yeah, we got some boba tea. Lucky for us. But looks like the shortage is gonna be for a while, you guys. What's up, Nikki? Hey, nice of you to join. What's up, Bigfoot? Hey, Lady Maya. Glad you could join. Boba is life. That's right. It is very, very much life. You haven't had boba in a year? Poor you. Well, it's gonna get worse. Because we're gonna have a couple of months of no boba. I think it's all over the US, right? Or is it only on the West Coast? I'm not sure. Am I sure I didn't threaten them? No, of course not. Me? Why would I threaten anyone? No. Out of the goodness of his own heart, he gave us some boba tea. Bloop, 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 bloop. What's up, Morgan? You never had boba. Well, you should get it. You should go. You should stop right now and go get some. Yeah. Besides that one place, all of the places I've been to these days, they've run out. Yeah, they have a sign. They usually have a sign in front that says, "Oh, we're out of boba." So sad. The apocalypse is here. The bobacalypse. Oh, you guys know. You know what I've been into these days? Oh my god. Let me show you. Let me show you. These videos are so good. Where you live, you don't have boba at all? How do you survive? That is very sad. Come on. Okay. Okay. Do you guys know this? Alright, watch. Watch what happens. Okay, look. Yeah, I feel bad for the guy. I feel bad for these people. So this is a bridge. I don't know where it is, but it's an 11'8". What? So it's a bridge, right? Yeah, but it's 11'8" inches tall, or 11'8" high. Okay, and they have a little bar here that prevents you from hitting the bridge, right? So it's like a metal bar, about 11'8", right? And I presume that they have some signs in front or something that'll tell you to watch out, right? But I don't know what's up with this one bridge. Like trucks keep hitting it. Like trucks like continually hits this freaking bridge, and it's so good. It's so satisfying. No, just watch, just watch. Okay, that wasn't clean. That wasn't clean. There are some that are super clean. Oh. Oh hey. Good for that guy. Oh no. So what I've noticed is that these Penske trucks, whenever there's a Penske truck, it's gonna hit the thing. It never fails. Always with these Penske trucks. Look at how good that is. Look at how good that peel is. That is so clean. Oh no. That's so good. Anyway, so I've been watching that forever. It's so satisfying. I don't know what's up with that. But I believe so. It's 11'8". I believe that it has been raised, I think. Yeah. So because all these trucks keep hitting the freaking railing, they've raised it to 12'4", right? So yeah, they raised it to 12'4", and it still happens. It still happens. Let's go to this one. Hold up. It's not enough. They raised it 8 inches, and it's not enough. Alright, so this one is 12'4", right? See, it has look. It has a sign. It has lights. All right, it says overheight must turn, but they don't do it. They don't pay attention. Bam! Oh, what a good peel. Yeah. I mean, the MVP is this freaking railing here. It's this bar, this metal bar right here. It is a beast, okay? Like, it eats your truck for breakfast. It doesn't move. Did you see that? Like, it doesn't move. Watch. Ah! So good. Well, they raised it 8 inches. I mean, 8 inches is pretty good, I guess. I guess it's hard to raise the bridge that much because, like, it's right here, right? But yeah. Oh, you used to be Cupid. Oh, hey, you have a new account? Awesome. Why is it called Fork in Toaster Sims? Anyway, so if you guys wanna watch some good shit, go to this one channel. It's so good. It never fails. Like, people just keep hitting this freaking bridge. Oh, it's a railroad bridge, so raising it requires them to regrade a lot of track. Yeah, that's probably why. Yeah, whenever there's a Penske truck, it always hits it. Those freaking Penske trucks, man. Anywho. All right. So, what happened last week? To recap, some exciting stuff happened in the story last week. So remember, the Run Walsing and his group were there at the Shaolin Temple, right? And the abbot of the temple, Master Fang Zheng, wanted them to stay, right? He wanted them to stay there for 10 years, and they decided to have a fight, right? They would have 3 fights. They would have a best 2 out of 3 fight, and if Runwal Singh's group loses, they will have to stay in the Shaolin Temple. Remember, Runwal Singh is the former head of the former head of the demon cult. Have we had the snacks yet? I don't have any snacks today. Yeah, I still have to buy them. I'm sorry. All right. So yeah, if they lose, they have to stay at the Shaolin Temple for 10 years. So then they commence the fight. Run Walsing fights with the abbot of the Shaolin Temple, Master Fang Zheng, and they're doing pretty well. He tries to use his chi absorbing technique on the abbot, and he somehow has a way to work around it. Right, so he has a way to beat it. He has a counter against it, which Run Walsing hadn't seen before. He thought that his chi absorbing technique is so good that no one can counter it. But looks like he's been out of the game for a long time, and now there's someone who can counter it. So he fights with. He's fighting, and he's about to lose, but then he pulls this dirty move by attacking a bystander. Right? He attacks Yu Changhai, who's just standing there minding his own business, watching the fight. He attacks him, and which forces the abbot, the Master Fang Zheng, to try and protect the guy that he's try and protect Yu Changhai, because he's a monk. He's a good dude. He doesn't want people to die. So he jumps in and tries to protect them, and Run Walsing uses that chance to attack the abbot, and he beats him. Right. So he wins the first fight, and Zuo Langchan jumps in. This is the head of the Songshan school, right? This is also a pretty bad dude. He jumps in. He jumps in for the second fight. They start fighting, and unbeknownst to Run Walsing, Zuo Langchan has been training for a long time, for years, developing this technique to counter Run Walsing's chi absorbing technique, and he does it, and he beats him. Right? It's like I forgot what it was called. It was like ice something technique. When he uses it on Run Walsing, and Run Walsing gets all cold and stuff, and he loses. He beats him, right? So that's one win for Run Walsing and one loss, right? And now, afterwards, Run Walsing declares that Ling Hu Chong, our hero, becomes his next fighter, or becomes his champion. So Ling Hu Chong becomes the next fighter, and his master, Yue Buchun, volunteers to be the next challenger. And hesitantly, Ling Hu Chong fights his master. He doesn't want to, but he has to. He doesn't want Run Walsing and Ying Ying to stay on the mountain for 10 years. So he fights. Now, right at this point, Ling Hu Chong is super good. He's like a professional martial artist, and his master is no match for him. Right? He can defeat his master right away, but he doesn't. He doesn't know what to do, because on the one hand, he doesn't want to defeat his master, but on the other hand, he doesn't want to lose either. So what he does in the fight is that he just dodges. Right? He doesn't attack. He just dodges, and his master really can't do anything about it. So, and then halfway through the fight, his master then performs some moves, and he repeats a bunch of these moves. And through the names and origins of these moves, Ling Hu Chong figures out what his master is saying. His master is sending him a message declaring his intention to invite Ling Hu Chong back to the school, back to the Huashan school, and his intention to betroth his daughter to Ling Hucheng. Right. Now, once Ling Hucheng figures this out, he is super happy because that's all he wanted. That's all he wanted, right? He just wants to go back to the school and marry the master's daughter. So he's kind of happy. He's kind of lost in thought during the fight, but then because he was lost in thought, he reflexively cuts his master. Right. So he's too much of a pro that he doesn't even need to concentrate. He can just reflexively attack people, and it becomes effective. So he cuts his master, and then he immediately kneels and apologizes. And then at that point, the master kicks him in the chest, and he passes out. And that's what happened last week. How's that? What's up, Cherry Blossom? Stream glitchy now. Oh yeah, if my voice drops, like let me know if my voice cuts in and out, and I'll change it because I had to set some settings for the audio. Yeah, so if my voice like cuts in and out, let me know. Okay. What's up, Liu Jinxiu? Hey, Diana. Thanks for joining. What's up, Adam? All right, let me change the screen here. All right, y'all ready? Chapter 28, Accumulation of Snow. Okay, so now Ling Hucheng had just been kicked and he passed out. Okay. Without knowing how much time had passed, Ling Hucheng gradually felt his body feeling colder. He slowly opened his eyes and saw a firelight, which dazzled him. He quickly shut his eyes and heard Ying Ying happily call out, You're awake. Ling Hucheng opened his eyes once again. He saw Ying Ying's pair of beautiful eyes staring at him, with her face full of joy. Ling Hucheng tried to sit up, but Ying Ying waved her hand. Rest for a bit more. Ling Hucheng looked around and saw that he was inside a mountain cave. Outside the cave, there was a big bonfire. He then remembered that he was kicked by his master. What happened to my master and master wife? Ying Ying flatly answered him. You're still calling him master? In this world, there's no such shameless master. You've already given way, but he didn't know what was good for him, and at the end he was unable to get out of an awkward situation. He gave you a very fierce kick, but broke his leg. Serves him right. My master broke his leg? Ling Hucheng asked, startled. Yeah, good for him. Yeah, that's what you get for kicking our hero there. Audio is fine. Vid is jumpy. No, it shouldn't be. Ying Ying giggled. Isn't it good enough that he wasn't shaken to death? Daddy said you still don't know how to use the art of essence absorbing yet. Otherwise, you wouldn't have gotten injured. Ling Hucheng mumbled. I stabbed the master and also broke his leg. This is really... You regret it? Ying Ying asked. Ling Hucheng felt extremely ashamed. I shouldn't have done that. If it weren't for master and master wife bringing me up, maybe I would have died a long time ago. How can there be a today? I repaid their kindness with enmity. I'm worse than an animal. He repeatedly wanted to kill you with his fierce moves, but you just endured it and let him do it. It can be said that you've repaid your master's kindness. Also, looking at the type of person you are, How could you have died? Even if the Yue couple didn't bring you up, you'd be called the little beggar in Jianghu because I don't think you would have died. Also, he already expelled you from Huashan, so the master-disciple relationship between you two was severed a long time ago. What is he to you now? Ying suddenly lowered her voice. Brother Chong, if you offended your master and master wife because of me, my heart... She lowered her head, and both of her cheeks were blushing. Ling Huchang saw her revealing her little girl's shyness, while her beauty was enhanced by the raging fire outside the cave shining on her face. His heart was moved. Extending his hand, he held her left hand and sighed, not knowing what to say. Ying softly murmured, "Why did you sigh? You regret knowing me?" No, how can I regret it? Because of me, you were willing to give up your life in the Shaolin Temple. Even if later on my body were grounded to dust and my bones broken to pieces, I still wouldn't be able to repay for your kindness, Ling Huchang said. He's such an idiot. Read the room, Ling Huchang. Ying stared into both of his eyes. Why are you talking like that? Even until now, your heart is still regarding me as a stranger. Ling Huchang felt ashamed. In his heart, there was always a feeling of estrangement towards her. I said it wrong. From today onwards, I will wholeheartedly treat you well. As he said these words, he couldn't refrain from thinking, what about little Marshall's sister? Could it be that I'll forget little Marshall's sister? Ying's eyes flashed with happiness. Brother Chong, are you speaking the truth, or are you deceiving me? Suddenly, Ling Huchang was no longer thinking of himself or of his longing for Yue Lingshan. He sincerely answered, If I deceive you, then let me be split in two by thunder and not die a good death. Ying's left hand slowly turned over and gripped Ling Huchang's hand, which was already holding her hand. She felt that this movement was the most precious moment in her whole life. She felt her whole body becoming hot, and her heart felt as if it were floating on clouds. She wished that this moment would last forever. After a long time, she slowly said, We're people who live in Wulin. I'm afraid we're destined not to die a good death. If later on you become ungrateful towards me, I won't hope that you'll be split in two by thunder. I'd rather kill you, nicely, with a single stab of my sword. Ling Huchang was startled. He never expected her to suddenly say such words. When he recovered from his shock, he laughed. My life was saved by you, so it already belongs to you. If you want to take it back, then you can come and take it back anytime. Ying smiled and said, Other people said, You're a cunning and mannerless romantic. As expected, the words coming out of your mouth are suave and sly, and not decent and proper at all. I don't know what kind of fate that made me like a frivolous romantic like you. Ling Huchang laughed. When was I being frivolous towards you? You said that I did, so now I want to be frivolous. Whoa. You said I did, so now I want to be frivolous towards you. As he said this, he sat up. Both of Ying's feet twitched, and she shot out for a few feet. She lowered her head and said, I regard you well, and we've been adhering to customs and rules. If you think that I'm a lascivious girl, and that you can just take advantage of me as you please, then you're mistaken. Ling Huchang replied in a serious manner, How can I dare to regard you as a lascivious girl? You're an old granny of good moral standing and reputation. You didn't even allow me to turn my head around to look at you. Ying laughed and remembered the first time she met Ling Huchang. At that time, he kept calling her Granny and was being very respectful towards her. She couldn't help smiling, and her dimples showed. She then sat down around 3 to 4 feet away from Ling Huchang. Ling Huchang laughed and said, You're not allowing me to be frivolous. From now on, I'll just keep calling you Granny. Ying giggled. All right, good grandson. Granny, my heart has... You can't call me Granny. Wait for 60 years before calling me that. If I could start calling you Granny from now till 60 years later, then my life would have been in vain. Ying Ying felt touched and thought, if I could really accompany him for 60 years, that would be as good as having ascended to heaven and becoming an immortal. Okay, just slow down there, girl. Like, you're way into him. The meaning of lascivious, like lecherous, like a slut. Like a, yeah, lascivious. Lascivious. Yeah, lustful, lewd, lecherous. Like you guys in chat. Ling Huchong gazed at her profile. Her nose was slightly pointed. Her long eyelashes were hanging down. Her appearance was delicate and tender, and her complexion was warm and soft. He thought, such a beautiful lady. Why do those thousands of cruel and wild heroes from Jianghu respect and fear her, and they're also willing to go through fire and water for her? He wanted to ask, but he felt that talking about this sort of thing at this time would dampen their spirits, so he stopped himself from asking. Oh, you guys asked for a lot of definitions. Enmity. So enmity means, where was enmity? Let me see the context. I repaid kindness with enmity. So it means meanness. It's the opposite of kindness. Repaid kindness with meanness. How about that? Kindness with hate. Yeah, hostility. There you go. That's a good word. And what else is there? Frivolous. Frivolous means like something that's not important. Like something that if you're talking about something and you say something frivolous, means you're talking about something else that's not really important, not really relevant. What's a good word for that? Trivial. Something trivial. There you go. Yeah. Not having any serious purpose or value. Hey, Blue and Black Roses. Thanks for the donation. I appreciate it. Thanks so much. What's up, Losh? Is the good translator back? No, I think we're stuck with this translator for the time being. He's gotten a little bit better, I think. Oh no, where am I? Whatever you want to say, just say it, Ying Ying said. From the beginning, I felt that there's something odd. How come old man, Zhu Qianchu, and the rest of them fear you so much? Ying Ying charmingly laughed. I know that if you don't understand this matter, well, then you will always feel uneasy. I'm afraid in your heart you've always regarded me as a monster. No, I regard you as a vastly knowledgeable immortal. Ying Ying smiled. You can't say these 3 words without speaking nonsense, and I'm in fact your type of person. You might not necessarily be frivolous and mannerless, but you merely love to talk sweetly. That's why other people said that you're a dissolute person. When I call you Granny, do you think that I was just talking sweetly? Call me Granny for the rest of your life then. I want to call you for the rest of my life, but it's not to call you Granny. Ying Ying's face turned bright red, and she felt sweetness swell in her heart. She whispered, I hope these words you just said aren't just sweet talk. You're afraid that I was just talking sweetly. For the rest of my life, when you cook meals for me, you don't have to put oil in them then. Okay, that looks like a Chinese idiom. Translator's note: a Chinese idiom which literally has the meaning oil mouth, slippery tongue, means sweet talk without being sincere. The joke on the oil is connected to this. Define dissolute? Ugh. Oh god, what does dissolute mean? I'm afraid you guys got me. Dissolute means that's my other people. Is it an evil person? No, it can't be evil. I don't think it means an evil person. That's why people said you're How about someone who is not civilized? Like an uncivilized person. How about that? But I'm thinking dissolute means something stronger than that. Like stronger than uncivilized. Like a bad person. Yeah. How about a bad, uncivilized person? How about that? Let's do it. Wait, what was the word again? Dissolute. Ah, fuck. Oh wait. That can be true. Lax in morals. If you're lax in morals, that doesn't that mean that you're immoral? Doesn't that mean that you're a bad person? What do you think, chat? Are you gonna give that to me? Am I waiting for? So if you don't know, the rule is that if you can catch me on a definition that I don't know, then I have to sing one song. I have to karaoke one song at the end of the stream. So that's why they're asking freaking definitions. Yes? No? Are you giving that to me? Did I define it correctly, or was I wrong? I'll leave it up to you. I'll leave it up to the chat. So I guess it means lax in morals, decadent, debauched. Ying Ying smiled and said, I can't cook. I even burnt the frogs I was roasting. Ling Huchang remembered those days when the two of them were roasting frogs in a wild field beside a creek. He felt at this very moment that the feeling of that time had returned. His heart was filled with tender affection. Ying Ying said quietly, if you're not afraid of my burnt meals, then I'll cook for you for the rest of your life. Why not? If you cook for me, then I'll eat 3 big bowls of burnt meals every day. Ying Ying softly said, you love to joke around to your heart's content. Actually, you speak teasingly to make me happy, and I feel very happy hearing them. Their eyes met, and for a long time they just looked at each other without speaking. After some time, Ying Ying slowly said, you already know that my daddy was originally the chief of the Divine Sun Moon sect. Later, Uncle Dongfang Bubai. I keep calling him uncle. I'm too used to it. He used deceit and imprisoned Daddy and fooled everyone else. He said that Daddy had died somewhere and had assigned him to... I don't like that she calls him Daddy. That sounds kind of weird. He's a little bit old to be calling him Daddy. And had assigned him to be the chief when that happened. At that time, I was still small, while Dongfang Bubai was very cunning and his plan didn't have any flaw, so I also didn't have any suspicion. After Dongfang Bubai managed to deceive everyone, he treated me unusually and was very polite and gave me a lot of favor. No matter what I said, he never rejected it. That's why when I was in the sect, I was in a very honored position. Song? Okay, so I didn't get that. You guys are so tough. You're a tough crowd. I think my definition was a little bit close. But okay, that's one song. That's one song at the end. Hey, we haven't had a song in a while. Those Jianghu's heroes, they're all subordinates of the Divine Sun Moon sect. They can't be regarded as members of the sect, but they've always been under my sex's subordination. Most of their leaders have taken my sex's Divine Three Corpse brain pill. Remember, if you remember the brain pill. Oh wait, he explains it. Ling Huchang snorted. That day at Plum Manor on Mount Gu, when the elders of the Devil sect, such as Bao Dachu, Qin Weibang, and the others, saw Run Walsing's red pills of the Divine Three Corpse Brain pill, they were all frightened to death. When Ling Huchang remembered the events of that day, he couldn't help scowling. Ying Ying continued, once you've taken this Divine Three Corpse Brain pill, every year after that, you have to take an antidote. Otherwise, the poison will come out and you'll die a miserable death. Dongfang Bubai treated those heroic warriors severely. If there were a small matter that's not up to his expectation, then he wouldn't give them the medicine. Every time I have to seek his compassion to give them the medicine. Ah, so you're their savior then. I'm not a savior. They came to me asking for help, and I didn't have the heart to just ignore them. This was originally also Dongfang Bubai's plan in deceiving the people in the sect. He wanted everyone to know that he's taken care of me and really respects me. Then naturally, no one suspects him of actually usurping the position of chief. Ling Huchang nodded his head and said, this person is a shrewd schemer. But it's bothersome for me to always ask for compassion from Dongfang Bubai. Furthermore, the situation inside the sect is very different from the past. Everyone also sees how Dongfang Bubai wants to be flattered. It's very disgusting. The spring of the year before last, I asked Marshal Nephew Elder Bamboo Green to accompany me, roaming the hills and playing with the water, and also to get out from the sex's matters, and from saying those shameless words to Dongfang Bubai. I didn't think that I would meet you then. She then looked at Ling Huchang, and the memory of the first time she met him at the bamboo alley rose up. She lightly sighed, and her heart was filled with tender feelings. After a long time, she went on. Those thousands of heroes who came to Shaolin Temple, of course, not all of them had taken the medicines that I asked for, but it only needs one person to receive my favor, then his family members, good friends, sect members, brothers, and many others, they naturally have also received my favor. Also, when they went to Mount Shaoshi, it's not necessarily because of me. It's more likely that they were answering big hero Linghu's summon, and they didn't dare not to come. When she said this, she pursed her lips, smiling. Ling Huchang sighed. You won't get any benefit from following me, but it's very likely that you'll advance a lot in the art of talking smoothly and sweetly. Ying Ying burst into laughter. In her entire life, everyone from the Divine Sun Moon sect had always regarded her like a princess, and no one dared to disobey her. As she grew up, she became bossier. Whatever she wanted was done, and no one dared to say any jokes to her. At this time, as she joked around with Ling Huchang, it was the happiest time of her life. After a time, Ying Ying turned her head around to face the wall. I'm naturally happy that you led so many people to Shaolin Temple to meet me, but those people are garrulous and crude. Behind my back, they're saying I treated you well, but you're actually a romantic person and leaves the seeds of love everywhere, and you don't really care about me at all. As she said this, her voice gradually quieted down, and she then quietly continued, you're really giving me a lot of face by making such a disturbance. Even if I died, I won't regret getting this good name. When you carried me on your back to Shaolin Temple seeking for a cure, I was completely unaware. Later on, I was imprisoned under the West Lake, and when I got out, I encountered the Hangshan schools' matter. Then I worked hard after getting the information before finally meeting you, but you suffered immensely here, Ling Huchang explained. What's with, oh my god, so many definitions. Define shrewd. Shrewd means someone who's like who is very good at planning, I believe. Like he's very smart, and is a planner, I believe. Pretty sure that's right. Crap. I'm not confident. Astute, sharp. Yeah, that intelligent, clever. I like that. I think that works. Oh no. Garrulous. Hey, why is this translator suddenly using so many big words? Where's garrulous? Oh god. Gar. Garrulous. Do I remember my Latin? They're violent. How about that? No. Violent or uncivilized? I think they're uncivilized. How about that? Garrulous. No! Oh, it means excessively talkative. What? Come on. Oh crap, that's 2 songs. Alright, crude. Oh, garrulous and crude. Crude means uncivilized. Crude means not polite, right? Yeah, they're rough. They're they like to make dirty jokes. Stuff like that. Yeah, not refined. Uncivilized. I like that. Impolite. Vulgar, rude. Ah, you bastards. That's 2 songs. That is 2 songs. Oh no, we're just starting the chapter and we're already at 2 songs. This does not bode well. Where am I? I didn't suffer living at the mountain behind Shaolin Temple. I lived alone in a stone house, and every 10 days an old monk came to give me firewood and rice. Apart from this, I didn't see anyone else until Ding Xian and Ding Yi Shitai came to Shaolin. Remember, those 2 were the leaders of the Hangshan school, the school with the nuns. Then Abbot wanted to see me, and I found out that he didn't pass on to you the tendon-altering sutra. When I found out that I was swindled, I was really angry and scolded that old monk. Dingxian Shutai told me not to worry, and she said that you are safe and well. She also said that you asked the 2 Shutai to go to the Shaolin abbot to ask for his compassion, Ying Ying told him. When you heard her explanation, you stopped scolding, Great Master Abbot? When the Shaolin Temple's abbot heard me scolding him, he only smiled and didn't get angry. He said, Female Shizhu, old monk wanted young hero Ling Hu to join Shaolin on that day, and to take him as my disciple. After that, this old monk would have taught him the internal art of tendon-altering sutra, to repel the various internal energies in his body. But he resolutely refused, and this old monk had no way to force him. Also, that day you carried him to come up. That day when he came up the mountain, he was on the verge of death. But then, when he went down the mountain, he was walking like a normal person. At the very least, the Shaolin Temple has given him some help. I thought what he said was reasonable, so I said, then why do you detain me on the mountain? Buddhists don't tell lies. Isn't what you're doing deceiving me? Ying Ying narrated. Yes, they shouldn't have concealed that from you. Okay, yeah. So they kept her on the mountain, and didn't tell her that Ling Hu Chong had left the mountain. That old monk gave me another reason. He said detaining me on Mount Shaoshi was because he hoped that the Buddhist way would change my violent nature. What nonsense, Ying Ying complained. Yes, what kind of violent nature do you have? You don't need to say some nice words to make me happy. Of course I have a violent nature. Not only have, but I have a considerable violence in me. But you don't have to worry. I won't use it on you, Ying Ying said. I hold you in a new light now, and thank you very much. Ying Ying continued. At that time I said to the old monk, You're already old, but you're still bullying the young. How shameless. That old monk replied, That day you voluntarily came to the Shaolin Temple, willing to give up your life in exchange for young hero Ling Hu's life. Even though we didn't cure young hero Ling Hu, we also didn't take your life. Hearing from the two Shitai from Hangshan School, young hero Ling Hu had recently done many heroic deeds in Jianghu. This old monk is really happy for him, taking into consideration the good reputation of the Hangshan schools is two Shitai. You may go down the mountain. He also promised to release hundreds of my Jianghu friends being detained there. I've received a lot of his kindness, so I paid my respect to him a few times. After that, I followed the Hangshan schools' two Shitai to go down the mountain. Later, at the bottom of the mountain, I met someone called 10,000 Miles Loner Tianbo Guang. He said that you're already leading a few thousand people to come to the Shaolin Temple to meet me. The two Shitai said that the Shaolin Temple was facing a difficulty, so they couldn't put up their hands in their sleeves. So they couldn't just put their hands in their sleeves. So we parted ways then, and they wanted me to intercept you. Unexpectedly, the two kind and gentle seniors died in Shaolin Temple. After she said this, she let out a really long sigh. Ling Hucheng also sighed. I don't know who did it. There were no traces of injury on their bodies, and I also don't know how they lost their lives. What do you mean no traces of injury? Daddy, Uncle Xiang, and I went to have a look at the bodies of the two Shitai at the temple. I undid their gowns to have a look, and saw on their chests two red holes the size of a needle. They were killed after being pierced by iron needles, Ying Ying told him. Oh, okay. Now we have a little bit of evidence, a little clue. Hey Claymore, yes, you should get into reading wuxia. Yeah. There's some pretty good stories. Ling Hucheng was startled and uttered an "Ah! Poison needle? Who uses poison needles in Wulin?" Ying Ying shook her head. Daddy and Uncle Xiang's experiences are vast, but they also don't know. Daddy said that it wasn't poison needle. It's actually a pointed weapon aimed at a fatal point that killed them, but the needle piercing Dingxian Shutai was slightly slanted. Yes, when I saw Dingxian Shutai, she was still alive. This needle pierced into her chest, so it wasn't done secretly, and they were actually fighting face to face. The person who killed the two Shitai must have been masters with high martial art, Ling Hucheng concluded. Ying Ying added, That's what my daddy also said. Since we have this clue, it won't be hard to find who the murderer is. Ling Hucheng slapped his hand on the cave's wall and said loudly, Ying Ying, while the two of us still have our lives, we must avenge the two Shitai. Yes. Ling Hucheng then put his hand on the wall to support himself in getting up, but he felt his four limbs feeling normal, and there was no soreness on his chest. It was as if he had not received any injury. This is strange. My master gave me a kick, but it seems that I'm not injured. My daddy said that you've absorbed much inner energy from other people, and your energy is far above your master. But because you didn't use your power to resist your master, you got injured. But your profound internal energy protected you, so your injury was light. Uncle Xiang gave you a few pushes to arouse your own energy to cure your injury, and you were alright in no time. But your master's leg, unexpectedly broke. That was really strange. Daddy thought for a long time, and he couldn't come up with an answer, Ying Ying explained. My internal energy is already powerful, so when Master kicked me, the counterforce from my energy broke his leg. Why is that strange? It's not that. Daddy said that even though absorbing other people's energies would protect your body, you must use it to injure other people. Compared to the completed internal art, you're still one level lower. So that's how it is, Ling Huchang said. He didn't really understand the reasons, so he didn't think much about it. But when he thought of how he injured his master in front of all those other masters, he felt really guilty. Okay. So he learned to absorb other people's energies, but he didn't learn how to use it to attack other people, right? So that's why Ran Walxing was confused as to how he injured his master. After a moment, both of them became quiet. They heard the crackling sound of the bonfire outside the cave, but they saw large snowflakes floating down. Compared to when they were still in the Shaolin Temple, the snow had gotten even larger. Suddenly, Ling Huchang heard sounds of heavy breathing from the east, outside the cave, and he immediately strained to listen to it. Ying Ying's internal energy wasn't as good as his, so she didn't hear anything. She saw his expression and asked, "What did you hear?" "I heard some sounds of panting just then. There's someone coming, but he's gasping heavily. That person's martial art is low, so there should be nothing to worry about." He then asked, "Where's your dad?" "Daddy and Uncle Xiang said they were going out for a stroll." As she said this, her face turned red. She knew that her father deliberately left to leave her alone with Ling Huchang, so that when he woke up, they could talk about their time apart. Ling Huchang again heard the sound of gasping. "Let's go out and take a look." When the two of them went out of the cave, they saw the mark of Ren and Xiang's footsteps, mostly covered up by the new snow. Ling Huchang pointed in the direction of the footsteps. "The gasping sounds are coming from that direction." The two of them started following the trail of footsteps. After more than 100 feet, they came to a level area of the mountain. They saw Ren Walxing and Xiang Wuntian standing still next to each other in the middle of the snowfield. The two of them were startled and rushed forward at the same time. Ying Ying called out, "Dad!" She extended her hand and pulled Ren Walxing's left hand. Her whole body was shaken as she touched her father, and felt cold energy from her father's hand entering the marrow of her bones. She was frightened and called out, "Dad, you... what's..." She had not finished speaking when her body trembled and her teeth started chattering, but she immediately understood what was happening. After her father was hit by Zhuo Langchan's polar ice energy, he had been using his power to suppress it, but at this time he finally couldn't suppress it any longer, and the cold energy had come out. And Xiang Wuntian was exhausting his power in helping her father to resist it. Oh, looks like he got injured pretty heavily by that Zhuo Langchan's polar ice energy. Remember, that was the technique that he had been developing for years to counter the qi absorbing technique of Ren Walxing. At the Shaolin Temple, Ren Walxing was deceived by Zhuo Langchan and had his acupoint sealed. After they had gone down the mountain, he briefly told her this. Ling Huchang had not yet understood what was going on, and from the light reflection on the snow, he saw the serious complexions of those two people, Ren and Xiang, and how Ren Walxing was gasping for air. He then realized that the gasping sound that he heard before was coming from Ren Walxing. When he saw Ying Ying's body tremble, he quickly extended his hand to grasp her left hand and felt a wave of cold air entering his body. He immediately understood. Ren Walxing was hit by his enemy's polar ice energy and was now in the process of distributing his internal energy according to the method written in the iron panel underneath the West Lake. It was slowly driving out the cold energy. When Ren Wuxing obtained Ling Huchang's help, he felt relieved. Xiang Wentian and Ying Ying's energies were different from his and were only able to help him resist the cold energy and not to drive it out. He was already using all of his power just to stop his entire body from freezing and had no more energy to drive the cold energy out. He had already resisted the cold energy for a long time and was feeling his power being drained as time went on. Ling Huchang's method was his last line of defense, which was slowly drawing the polar ice energy out of Ren Wuxing's body and scattering it. The four of them were holding hands, standing in the middle of the snowfield, looking like statues. Big snowflakes kept falling on the four people's heads and faces, and gradually their heads, eyes, noses, and gowns were covered. Ling Huchang was using his energy, and he inwardly thought that there was something strange. How come the snow's not melting on my face? He didn't know that Zhuo Lengchan had practiced his polar ice energy to an extremely high level, so much so that the cold air coming out was as cold as the snow. At this moment, their internal organs still held their warmth, but their skins were already ice cold, causing the snowflakes falling on their bodies not to melt at all. Compared to the snow falling on the ground, it was accumulating faster on their bodies. After a long time, the sky slowly got brighter, but the snow kept on falling. Ling Huchang was worried that Ying Ying was weak and that she wouldn't be able to endure the invasion of the cold energy for long. But the poisonous cold air inside Ren Wuxing's body had not yet emptied. Even though he wasn't gasping anymore, he didn't know whether they could part hands at this time, and whether his condition would change if they had parted hands. Unable to settle on an idea, he continued helping him scatter the cold energy. He felt from holding Ying Ying's palm that even though her skin was cold, she had stopped quivering. He was also able to feel the tiny pulse on her palm. At this time, a few inches of white snow had accumulated on top of his two eyes, so he could only feel without seeing how the sky had become brighter. He continually increased his effort, hoping that the cold energy in Ren Wuxing's body would be completely driven out by morning. So if you're confused on what's happening, they're all sitting, all four of them are sitting, and they're I guess they're using their energy to drive that cold energy out of Ren Wuxing's body. And then as the four are sitting on the ground, the snow is falling on them and it's just covering them, right? Oh, Losh, you have a song you want me to play? I can play next break. I gotta start Discord. I don't have Discord open. All right. How about 5-minute break, and I'll be right back. See you guys. All right, I'm back. Give me a second. Alright, so they're sitting there, all four of them, and they're being covered by snow. I think they're completely covered by snow right now. After a long time, the sound of horses' hoofbeats coming closer was suddenly heard from the northeast. They heard one horse was being ridden in front of the other one. Then they heard a person shouting, Marshall's sister, please hear me out." Even though both of Ling Huchang's ears were already covered by snow, he still heard him clearly. It was his master Yue Buchun's voice. Both horses were still galloping as they came nearer, and they heard Yue Buchun calling out again, "You don't understand the reason, but you're throwing a tantrum already. Please, hear me out." This was followed by Madame Yue shouting, "I'm not in a cheerful mood. What's that got to do with you? What's there to say?" Hearing the two people calling out to each other, they deduced that Madame Yue's horse was at the front, and Yue Buchun's horse was at the back, chasing her. Ling Wuchang felt it very strange. Master Wife is so furious. How did Master offend her? But he heard the horse Madame Yue was riding kept on going. Suddenly, she uttered a "yi," and it was followed by the long neighing sound of the horse. It must be because she had suddenly reined in her horse to stop it, and both horses and person were now standing still. A short time later, Yue Buchun caught up to her on his horse. "Martial sister, don't you think these 4 piles of snow look like snowmen?" Madame Yue uttered a It seemed that her anger had not yet abated, but she just said to herself, "We're in the wilderness. How can there be people making these 4 snowmen?" Ling Wuchang thought, "How can there be snowmen in this wilderness?" He then realized the 4 of us are covered in white snow until we look swollen. That's why Master and Master Wife thought that we're snowmen. Master and Master Wife were right in front of him now, and the circumstances seemed awkward, and yet actually very funny. He was afraid, as he thought, once Master found out that it's us, he's bound to give each of us a stab. If he wanted to kill us now, he wouldn't need to spend too much energy. Yue Buchun said, There's no footmarks on the snow. These 4 snowmen must have been made a few days ago. Martial sister, have a look. It seems like 3 of them are male, and 1 is female." "They all look similar. How can you tell they're male or female?" Madame Yue replied, and with a shout urged her horse to go again. "Martial sister, you're so quick-tempered. There's no one around here. Let's talk about it. How can that not be good?" Yue Buchun urged. What quick, slow-tempered? I'm going back to Huashan. You love to flatter Zuo Lengchan. You can go to Songshan by yourself." "Who said I love to flatter Zuo Lengchan? I don't even want his position of the Huashan school leader. Why do I want to be subservient to Songshan school? Wait, I don't even want this position of being the Huashan school's leader. Why do I want to be subservient to the Songshan school?" "That's right. I don't understand why you want to be subservient towards Zuo Lengchan and listen to all his instructions. Although he's the chief of the 5 mountain sword schools, he shouldn't be involved in the matters of our Huashan school. Once the 5 sword schools are joined into one, will there still be a Huashan school? When Master gave you the leadership of the Huashan school, what did he say?" Madame Yue retorted. "The respected master wanted me to increase the reputation of the Huashan school." "That's right. If you agreed to Zuo Lengchan and joined the Huashan school with the Songshan, how do you repay the late respected master? As the saying goes, would rather have chicken's beak, wouldn't want cow's buttocks." What? This saying means, would rather have a low but independent position than hold a high position under the control of others. "Even though the Huashan school is small, we can support ourselves and we don't need to depend on other people," Madame Yue said. Yue Buchun let out a long sigh before saying, "Martial sister, Hangshan schools is Dingshan and Dingyu Shutai's is martial art. Compared to the 2 of us, which one is higher and which is lower?" "We've never dueled before. I think we're about similar. Why are you asking this?" Yue Buchun answered. "I also think that we're about similar. The 2 Shitai lost their lives in the Shaolin Temple. It's obvious that it was Zuo Lengchan's doing." Ling Wuchang was surprised. He had also originally thought that it was Zuo Lengchan's doing. Otherwise, there was no one else with such good martial art. Although the martial arts of the Shaolin and Wudang schools' leaders were high, they were both such gentlemen and would have never harmed the 2 Shitais. Songshan school had besieged the 3 nuns of the Hangshan school many times. It seemed now that Zuo Lengchan had personally taken care of it. Run Wuxing had such good martial art, but he still lost under Zuo Lengchan's hand. So the Hangshan schools' two Shitai were naturally not his match. Madame Yue said, "Killed by Zuo Langchan? So what? If you have any evidence, then quickly invite all the heroes from the Orthodox schools to confront Zuo Langchan to avenge the two Shitai." "1, I don't have any evidence. 2, we're weak, that we can't fight him. We're so weak? 2, we're so weak that we can't fight him." "What do you mean weak and can't fight him? We'll ask Shaolin Schools' Abbot Fangzheng and Wudang Schools' Priest Chongshu to preside over this justice. How would Zuo Langchan dare to fight us?" "I'm afraid before we can invite Abbot Fangzheng and the others, we'll both be like the Hangshan Schools' two Shitai," Yue Buchun reasoned. "You're saying Zuo Langchan would kill the two of us? Huh, we've already striven for so long in Wulin. Is it really necessary to think that much? If we're afraid of the tiger in front and the wolf at the back, can we still be standing in Jianghu?" Ling Hucheng inwardly admired. Even though Master Wife is a woman, her heroic spirit is astounding. What's going on? We're reading a story. That's what's going on. Yue Buchun replied, "I won't regret the two of us dying, but what's the use of that? When Zuo Langchan secretly moves against us, the two of us will die without knowing why or how. As a result, he would still be able to resume his plan and finish making the Five Mountains school. Maybe he would even fabricate some accusations to put on us." Madame Yue just hummed without answering him. Yue Buchun continued, "Once we died, the disciples of the Huashan school would become easy pickings for Zuo Langchan. How could they fight back? No matter what, we must always think of Shan-Er." Shan-Er is their daughter. Madame Yue held back her words. It seemed that her husband's words had finally moved her. After some time, she said, "And we'll do what you say and won't uncover Zuo Langchan's plot for now. We'll play along and be polite in front of him and wait for an opportunity to move." "You've agreed to my words, and it's very good. Pingzhi's family's evil-resisting sword manual had already been stolen by that little thief, Ling Hucheng. If he agreed to give it back to Pingzhi, then my Huashan disciples could all learn from it. Then what else do we have to fear from Zuo Langchan? My Huashan school is now in a precarious position. How can we survive?" Madame Yue said, "Why are you still suspicious of Chong-Er? Just because he had greatly advanced in his sword art? Are you still thinking that it's because he embezzled the Pingzhi family's evil-resisting sword manual? During the battle at Shaolin Temple, Great Master Feng Zheng and Priest Chongshu both said that this wonderful sword art was passed down by Martial Uncle Feng. Even though Martial Uncle Feng is from the sword branch, he's still from our Huashan school. Of course it's wrong for Chang-Er to join hands with the demons from the Devil sect, but anyhow, we can't wrongly accuse him of embezzling the evil-resisting sword manual. If you still don't believe Great Master Feng Zheng and Priest Chongshu, then who would you believe in this world?" Ling Hucheng felt a swell of gratitude as he heard Master Wife explaining things on his behalf. He really wanted to go out there to give her a hug. Suddenly, the top of his head was shaken a few times as someone patted him. He thought, this isn't good. We've been discovered. Chief Run's poisonous cold energy hasn't been completely driven out yet. If Master and Master Wife were to duel with me again, how can that be good? He felt the internal energy coming from Ying Ying's hand become more severe. He guessed that Ren Wuxing was also feeling uneasy. Again, someone lightly tapped his head a few more times, but then there was no more movement. Then he heard Madame Yue saying, "Yesterday, when you were fighting Chang-Er, you used the Return of the Prodigal Son, Green Pines welcoming guests, Nong Yu playing the flute, and Xiao Shi riding the dragon successively. What's the meaning behind this?" Hey, even though this little thief's conduct is improper, he was still brought up by the two of us. It's very pitiful to see him mistakenly going down the wrong path. I only wanted him, the prodigal son, to return and to let him know that I'll allow him to return to the Huashan family, Yue Buchun told her. I got the meaning of that, but how about the other two moves? You already know about it. Why do you still ask? If Chang'er agreed to return to the right path, then you promised Shan'er to be his wife, didn't you? Right. This hint of yours, was it just a momentary measure, or was it for real? Madame Yue asked, but Yue Buchun didn't answer. Oh, okay. So we get to know if he was being honest. Ling Huchong again felt someone lightly tapping the top of his head. He immediately realized that Yue Buchun was pondering and lightly tapping the snowman at the same time. It wasn't because the four of them had been discovered. He then heard Yue Buchun answering, "A gentleman's word is like a mountain. I would not renege on a promise I've already made to him." Okay, he's saying he's honest. He's saying he was being um he was being sincere. So, but do we believe him? He's completely infatuated by that devil sex's witch. How could you not know that? Madame Yue queried. No, he felt appreciative towards that witch, but he's not infatuated with her. He treats that witch very differently compared to the loving manner that he treats Shan'er. You didn't see that? I naturally see it too. You're saying he still has feelings for Shan'er? Not only still has feelings, he simply still loves her very deeply. Once he understood the meaning behind the sword moves that I use, didn't you see how he became deliriously happy and ecstatic? Madame Yue coldly said, "So, for this reason you use Shan'er as a bait to hook him? You were going to use Shan'er to make him lose to you?" Even though Ling Hucheng's ears were full of snow, he still heard the anger and ridicule in the words that his master wife said. He had never heard his master wife use this kind of tone before. The Yue Buchun couple had always regarded him as their son, and they had always spoken to him about everything without keeping secrets. Madame Yue was quick-tempered, and she occasionally argued with her husband when they were at home, but in front of the school's disciples, she always respected her husband's position as leader of the school and did not defy his orders. The way she spoke just then showed her heart's discontent. Oh, you want to cover Ying Ying's ears? Oh yeah, that's true. I didn't think of that. Ying Ying is hearing everything. She's hearing that he doesn't really love her the way he loves the younger sister. Yue Buchun let out a long sigh. So, even you can't understand my intention. My own success and failure is a small matter, while the prosperity and decline of the Huashan school is a big matter. If I could persuade Ling Hucheng to return to Huashan, then I would have solved 4 matters in one fell swoop. This would have been a fine deed. What 4 matters in one fell swoop? Madame Yue asked. Ling Hucheng's sword art is extremely high and is far above me. It's alright if he got his sword art from the evil resisting sword manual. It's also alright if he got it from martial Uncle Feng. If he returned to Huashan, the prestige of my Huashan school would greatly rise, and its reputation would spread throughout the realm. This is the first big matter. Zuo Langchan's plot of annexing Huashan school would no doubt become hard to accomplish, and the 3 schools of Taishan, Hangshan, and Hangshan would also be safe. This is the second big matter. When he returns to the Orthodox school, it will not only make the Devil sect lose a powerful ally, they will instead have gained a big enemy. The Orthodox would flourish while the demonical would become weak. This is the third big matter. Martial sister, don't you think this is right? Yue Buchun spoke. And What's the fourth matter? The fourth matter? We don't have any son, so we've always regarded Chang'er as our own. Seeing him mistakenly gone down the wrong path is actually very painful for me. I'm not young anymore. This reputation that I have in the world, why do I need to be concerned about it? I only want him to change his ways and return to the orthodox path so as to allow our family to have a harmonious reunion. How can this be not a happy matter? Yebuchun answered. When Ling Huchang heard this, he couldn't help his heart feeling excited, and he nearly called out, Master, Master Wife. Yeah, don't do it, dude. Don't do it. Shan'er and Pingzhi are perfectly suited to each other. Are you really willing to tear apart the two of them and make Shan'er begrudge you for the rest of your life? I'm doing this for Shan'er's own good. For Shan'er's own good? Pingzhi is diligent, earnest, and well-behaved. What's not good about that? Even though Pingzhi is diligent, but compared to Ling Huchang, he still lacks a sky deep. He still lacks by a sky deep. Even if he gallops on a horse for his whole lifetime, he wouldn't be able to catch up to Ling Huchang. Strong martial art makes a good husband? I'm really hoping that Chang'er would return to the orthodox path and return to our school, but he creates trouble as he pleases, is frivolous, and is too fond of good wine. If Shan'er marries him, she is bound to get neglected for the rest of her life. Ling Huchang felt ashamed in his heart. Martial mother judges me to be creating trouble as I please, frivolous and fond of good wine. But if little martial sister really becomes my wife, would I disappoint her? No, never. Yebuchun let out a long sigh and then said, This guy likes to sigh. In any case, I threw caution to the wind, but this little traitor has fallen very deeply. These words that we're talking about are all in vain. Martial sister, are you still angry at me? Madame Yue didn't answer, but after a while, she asked, Does your leg still hurt a lot? It's only an external injury. It's not that serious. Let's go back to Huashan. Yebuchun answered, and Madame Yue acknowledged him. They then heard the sound of two horses galloping farther and farther away from them. What do you guys think of that exchange? What happened there? I love how in these stories there are so many coincidences. They just happen to come across these four people, these four snowmen sitting there. Ling Huchang was utterly confused. Ling Huchang was utterly confused, and he repeatedly went over the conversation between his master and master wife in his head, so much so that he forgot to move his internal energy. Suddenly, a portion of the cold energy rushed up his arm, and he was unable to restrain it. He felt the cold strangely enter the bones in his entire body, and he hastily regulated his internal energy to resist it. At the moment he regulated his energy, he suddenly felt that it was blocked at his left shoulder, so he hastily increased his energy. But the art of essence absorbing that he had practiced was only according to the secrets engraved on the iron panel, which he had learned by himself without any teacher. So there were still many kinds of refined and obscure techniques that he had not learned yet. By forcefully rushing his energy dissipated even more. So what started as a gradual stiffness in his left arm was followed by the numbness on the left side of his body, his left waist, and all the way down to his leg, which was now numb. Ling Huchang felt frightened and opened his mouth to shout, but he found that even his lips couldn't move. Right then, they heard the sounds of hoofbeats from two horses coming closer. A person exclaimed, "There's a mess of hoof prints here. Dad and Mom must have been stopped here for a moment." Wait. Okay, this is Yue Lingshan. "There's a mess of hoof prints here. Dad and Mom must have stopped here for a moment." It was really Yue Lingshan's voice. The entire family. Ling Huchang was surprised and happy at the same time. He thought, how come little Marshall's sister is also here? Then he heard another voice saying, Master's leg was injured. Let's not go astray and quickly catch up to them. It was Lin Pingzhi's voice. They're throwing Pingzhi under the bus. I mean, the master is. I don't think the master wife wants that, right? I don't think the master wife was for that. Ling Huchang thought, yes, the snow on the ground shows the hoof prints clearly. Little Marshall sister and Marshall brother Lin must have been chasing master and master wife, so they're on the same road and had finally come here. Yue Lingshan suddenly called out, Little Lin, look at those 4 snowmen. They look like fun. They're standing in a row and holding hands. There's no horses nearby. How come there's people here making snowmen? Yue Lingshan laughed. Let's make 2 snowmen for ourselves, all right? All right, we'll make 1 man and 1 girl, and they'll be holding hands too, Pingzhi acknowledged. Yue Lingshan turned her body over and dismounted her horse. She cupped the snow on her hand and started to make her snowman. Let's find master and master wife first. It's more important. After we found them, then we'll make our snowmen, Pingzhi told her. You always know how to make people lose interest. Even though Daddy's leg is injured, he can still ride a horse just fine. Also, Mommy is besides him. What's there to be afraid of? When the 2 of them started to use their swords in Jianghu, you weren't even born yet. What you said isn't wrong, but because we haven't found master and master wife, we'll feel uneasy while playing here. All right, I'll listen to you then. But after we found Dad and Mom, you have to accompany me in making 2 very good-looking snowmen. Of course, Pingzhi answered. Ling Huchang thought, I thought for sure that he would have said, we'll make it as good looking as you, or maybe it'll be very hard to make it as good looking as you. I never expected him to just say, of course, in finishing up the matter. He then thought more, Marshall brother Lin is honest and settled. How can he be frivolous like me? If little Marshall's sister wanted me to make snowmen with her, even if there were a big matter, I would put it to the back of my mind. Little Marshall's sister is very submissive towards him, even though she's not willing. She doesn't fight back or argue at all. How can she be like that when she's talking to... How can she be like that when she's talking to me? Marshall brother Lin has recovered, but I don't know whose sword chopped him, and little Marshall's sister has put the blame on my head. Pingzhi is a boring boyfriend. I know, right? Can't even joke around. He was striving to listen to the conversation between Lingshan and Ling Pingzhi, and had again forgotten about the stiffness in his own body. But this actually fitted with the secret of the art of essence absorbing, which was, don't concentrate, don't feel anything. The numbness in his left leg and left waist gradually lightened. Then he heard Yue Lingshan saying, all right, since we can't make snowmen, I want to write some words on these 4 snowmen. With a shua sound, she drew her longsword out. Ling Huchang was again startled. She wants to use her sword to slash and stab words on our bodies? This is going to be disastrous. He wanted to call out or use his hand to stop her, but he was unable to say anything, and he couldn't move his arms. But he heard a few light sounds of chi chi as she used the point of her sword to write a few words on the snow on Xiang Wenxian's body. She's just writing on their bodies. She's like poking their bodies. Fortunately, she only drew her words shallowly and didn't go deep enough to see the clothes or to harm Ling Huchang's skin. Ling Huchang was thinking, what is she writing on our bodies? He then heard Yue Lingshan softly saying, come and write a few words. All right, Pingzhi answered. He took her sword and also wrote on their bodies from left to right. He stopped when he reached Ling Huchang's body. Ling Huchang thought, and what did he write? He only heard Yue Lingshan said, that's right, the 2 of us are going to be like that. The 2 of them were quiet for a long time. Ling Huchang felt it even more strange. He thought, What must they be like after the two of them are gone and Chief Ren's poisonous cold energy is driven out? Then I'll get out and take a look. Hey, yo, that's not good. Once I move, then the snow on my body will fall and the words on my body will be gone. If the four of us move at the same time, then all the words will be gone. After some time, he heard a group of horses galloping from somewhere far, coming towards them. Ling Huchang deduced from the horses' hoofbeats that there were more than 10 horses coming. He thought, it's most likely they're the rest of the Huashan School's martial brothers and sisters. The hoofbeats were gradually getting nearer, but the two people, Lin and Yue, seemed not to care about it. He heard those people were coming from the northeast as they came nearer. When they were still a few li away, 7 to 8 people broke off and galloped to the west, while the rest of the people continued to come nearer. It was obvious that they were trying to outflank the two wings. Ling Huchang was worried. The incoming people are harboring evil intentions. Body art? That's funny. Suddenly, Yue Lingshan called out, "Ayo, there are people coming." The sound of the horses galloping became faster, as those people urged their horses. Two sounds, what is that, were heard as they shot 2 long arrows. This was followed by the sound of 2 horses neighing sorrowfully and dropping heavily on the ground. Ling Huchang thought, the martial arts of these people are not weak, and their intentions are evil and cruel. They shot little Marcel's sister and martial brother Lin's horses first to prevent them from escaping. He then heard the laughter and shouting from these people as they approached on their horses. Yue Lingshan was frightened and stepped back a few steps. Ling Huchang again heard a person laugh and said, "Ha ha ha! One little brother, one little sister. Which family or school are you from?" Lin Pingzhi answered in a clear voice, "I'm Lin Pingzhi from the Huashan School. This is my martial sister with the surname Yue. We're not acquainted with you. Why did you kill our horses?" Hold up. That person laughed. "Huashan School? Your master. Was he the one defeated by his own disciple and called Gentleman's Sword Mr. Yue?" Ling Huchang's heart was pained to hear this. These groups of heroes were gathering at Shaolin, and I offended Master. It only happened yesterday, but in a short time, everyone around the world has already known about it. I troubled Master and made other people ridicule him. This is a very grave sin. Ling Huchang's conduct is improper, and time and again he violated the rules and customs. The year before, he was expelled from the family of Huashan School, Lin Pingzhi said. The meaning behind his words was that even though Master had lost to Ling Huchang, he had lost to an outsider, and not to a disciple of his own school. That person laughed. "Ha ha ha! This lady's surname is Yue. What is she to Yue Buchun?" Yue Lingshan indignantly said, "What's that got to do with you? You killed my horse. Payback for my horse." That person laughed again. "She looks unrestrained and vigorous. It's most likely that she's Yue Buchun's little mistress." The remaining 10 more people burst into laughter. Ling Huchang was inwardly startled. These people are vulgar and coarse. Seems that they're not people from the orthodox schools. I'm afraid that they'll harm little Martial's sister. Lin Pingzhi said, "Sir, you're a senior in Jianghu. How can you speak such filth? My martial sister is my master's daughter." That person laughed. "So, it's Yue Buchun's young lady. Only your reputation sounds good." Another person on the side asked, "Brother Lu, why does only her reputation sound good?" "I once heard people say that Yue Buchun's daughter is the most beautiful girl in the entire world, but that's not the case when I look at her now." Another person laughed and said, "This little girl's appearance looks ordinary, but she has a fair white skin. If we stripped her, she might look all right." Those people all laughed loudly hearing this. Their laughter was full of lewd meaning. When Yue Lingshan, Lin Pingzhi, and Ling Hucheng heard such rude talk, they were all furious. Lin Pingzhi pulled his longsword out and shouted, "You're spouting such shameless words! I pledge my life to deal with you." That person laughed. "Ha ha ha, have a look. What did these two lewd people write on the snowmen?" Pingzhi loudly called out, "I'll fight with you." Ling Hucheng heard a ch sound, and he knew that it was Lin Pingzhi stabbing with his sword. This was followed by the continuous clashing sound of weapons as some people jumped down from their horses to fight him. Yue Lingshan immediately pulled her sword out. 7 to 8 people called out at the same time, "I'll fight this little girl." One man laughed and said, Everyone, don't fight. Everybody will get their turn." Weapons clashed, and Yue Lingshan started to fight with the enemies. A person bellowed painfully as he was stabbed. A man said, "This little girl is very fierce. Old Three Shi, I'll avenge you." As the sound of battle rumbled on, Yue Lingshan called out, "Be careful." A loud tongue sound was heard, and Lin Pingzhi uttered a "Huh." Yue Lingshan was startled and called out, "Little Lin." It seemed that Lin Pingzhi had been injured. A person called out, "Let's butcher this little kid." The leader of the group answered, "Don't kill him. Capture him alive. Once we've captured Yue Buchun's daughter and son-in-law, we don't have to be afraid that hypocrite not listening to us." Not listening to us. Who's not listening? I mean, who are they that he's not listening to them? Ling Hucheng was striving to listen, but all he could hear was the sound of weapons splitting the air. Suddenly, a loud tongue sound was heard, followed by a slapping sound. A man scolded, "Damn it, stinky lady!" Ling Hucheng suddenly felt someone leaning against his body, and he heard Yue Lingshan gasping for air. It was really her, leaning on his snowman body. After numerous ting-tang sound, a man happily shouted, "This still can't capture you?" Ah! Yue Lingshan was startled, and the sound of battle stopped, while those people started laughing loudly. Ling Hucheng felt that Yue Lingshan was being dragged away by someone, and heard her screaming, "Release me! Release me!" A person laughed. "Oh, Tu Min, you said that her whole body is white. I don't believe it. Let's open up her gown and have a look." This was accompanied by the sounds of people clapping and cheering. Lin Pingzhi scolded, "Dog!" A slapping sound was heard as someone kicked him. This was followed by the sound of clothes being ripped. Oh shit. Things are getting dire. When Ling Hucheng heard his little martial sister being insulted by those thieves, why would he care whether Ranwo Sing's poisonous cold energy had been completely driven out or not? He used his power to jump out of the snow. His right hand pulled the long sword out of his waist, and his left hand moved to wipe the snow on his face. But who would have thought that his left hand didn't respond to his thought and didn't move at all? Those people cried out in surprise. He extended his right hand to wipe the snow on his face. Then, as his vision cleared, he sent his longsword out, and 3 men were pierced through their throats. He turned around and slashed twice, killing 2 more people. He saw in front of him one man holding both of Yue Lingshan's arms behind her back, while one man was standing in front of her, waiting for him. Ling Hucheng stabbed his longsword at the lower left side of that person. Then he lifted his right leg, kicking that person's corpse away to clear his longsword. He heard people attacking from behind him, and without turning his head, he reversed his sword and stabbed 2 people's hearts. He held his sword normally again, and stabbed the throat of that person holding Yue Lingshan's arms. He lost his hold and dropped forward onto Yue Lingshan's shoulder, with blood gushing out from his throat. Hey Jake, thanks for the donation. Thanks so much. I really appreciate it. The situation had completely changed. Ling Hucheng had killed 9 people successively in just the blink of an eye. The leader of those people shouted and smashed down 2 iron plates on Ling Hucheng's head. Holy shit. Ling Hucheng's longsword trembled, went through the gap between the 2 iron plates, and stabbed the leader's left eye. He screamed in pain until he finally dropped down on the ground. Ling Huchang turned his head around and slashed his sword out, killing 3 more people. The remaining 4 cried out as they were frightened to death and quickly ran for their lives. Ling Huchang shouted, "You've insulted my little martial sister! None of you will get out of here alive!" He chased 2 people and stabbed both of them from their backs. Each stab penetrated through their chests. The 2 people had been running very quickly. Even though the sword had cut their breaths, their legs were still running forward. They still ran for more than 10 steps before dropping on the ground. Ling Huchang saw the remaining 2 people were also running away. One was running towards the east, and one was running towards the west. He turned to the east and tossed his sword. The longsword flew like a sliver of light and struck the back of the person's waist. Ling Huchang turned westward and gave chase to the last remaining person. After running for more than 100 feet, he caught up. He extended his hand, and only then did he realize that there was no weapon in his hand. So he moved his power into his finger and poked the back of that person. The person felt pain at his back and turned around, hacking his saber down. Ling Huchang's bare hand martial art was just ordinary. Even though his poke managed to hit the enemy, he didn't know the method of moving his energy, so he didn't injure the enemy. When he saw his opponent chopping his saber down, he couldn't help feeling nervous and hastily avoided it. At the same time, he saw a big weakness on the right side of that person, so he formed a fist with his left hand and punched out. But, unexpectedly, his left arm only moved a little, and he was unable to lift it further when his enemy's saber was already chopping down. Astonished, Ling Huchang hastily jumped back. That person lifted his saber and ferociously charged at Ling Huchang. Since Ling Huchang didn't have any weapon in his hand, he didn't dare to fight the enemy, so he quickly turned around to escape. Yue Lingshan picked up a long sword from the ground and called out, "Big martial brother, sword!" Oh wait, that's her. "Big martial brother, sword!" She then tossed the long sword towards him. Ling Huchang grabbed the sword with his right hand and turned around, laughing loudly. That person still had his saber lifted above his head, waiting to chop it down when he suddenly saw Ling Huchang's sword flicker. In that moment, he was stupefied and unexpectedly didn't chop his saber down. Ling Huchang slowly walked towards him. That person's whole body was trembling with both knees bent as he sat heavily on the snow. Ling Huchang indignantly said, "You insulted my martial sister, so I can't spare you." He lifted his longsword onto his opponent's throat. But something flashed in his mind, so he walked a step closer, then in a whisper asked, "What was written on the snowman?" What was written on the snowman? He's so curious. That person tremblingly answered, It's till the sea is dried, and the rocks are dust. Our love will never change." For the moment, this phrase, "till the sea is dried and the rocks are dust, our love will never change," existed in this world. This was probably the first time ever that it was being said in such a frightened and sad manner. Ling Huchang was expressionless and said, "It's till the sea is dried and rocks are dust, our love will never change." He felt sour in his heart and sent his long sword out and pierced that person's throat. He turned around and saw Yue Lingshan was supporting Lin Pingzhi to get up. Both of their faces and bodies were full of blood. Lin Pingzhi stood up and cupped his hands towards Ling Huchang. "Many thanks to brother Ling Hu for your kindness in helping us." Well, he's still, he's super powerful. Super powerful. All right, let me take a break, guys. 5 minutes. Yeah. And I will be right back. All right, I'm back. Wait, so did he just kill everyone? He didn't even ask who they were? What the hell? That's a bit drastic. You should ask who they are. Alright, continuing on. What's that for? Your injuries aren't serious? Ling Huchong asked. It's alright, Lin Pingzhi answered. Ling Huchong returned the longsword to Yue Lingshan. Then he pointed towards the hoof prints on the snow. Master and master wife went that way. Alright, Lin Pingzhi said. Yue Lingshan led to the enemy's horses and mounted one of them. She said, We'll go find Dad and Mom. As Lin Pingzhi no one's asking who they are. No one's asking who those people are. As Lin Pingzhi struggled to mount his horse, Yue Lingshan rode her horse to go besides Ling Huchong. She reined her horse in and looked at his face. Ling Huchong also looked back directly into her eyes. Many thanks to you, Yue Lingshan stammered. Then she turned around, lifted her rein, and the two horses started to go towards the northwest, following the hoof prints left by the Yue Bu-chun couple. Ling Huchong was disquieted as he watched the back of those two people entering the distant forest. He then slowly turned around and saw Ren Woxing, Xian Wentian, and Ying Ying had already shaken out the snow on them and were now looking at him. Ling Huchong happily inquired, Chief Ren, I didn't trouble you? Ren Woxing laughed bitterly. I wasn't troubled, but you may be in trouble. How's your left arm? Something's not right with the meridian on my arm. My chi can't go through it, and I actually can't move it. Ren Woxing scowled. This is a little bit troublesome. We have to think of something to do about it. You rescue the Yue family's young lady. That can be counted as repaying the kindness of your master. From now on, nobody owes anyone anything. Brother Xiang, how come that old Lu didn't progress? Why is he doing this kind of despicable thing? Xiang Wentian answered, Hearing from his tone, it seemed that he wanted to capture these two young people and take them to the Dark Wood Cliff. Oh, looks like they were people from the demon cult. Could it be that this is Dongfang Bubai's idea? What connection does he have with this hypocrite? Ren Woxing pondered. Ling Huchong pointed at the corpses on the snow and asked, These people are Dongfang Bubai's subordinates? They're my subordinates, Ren Woxing answered, and Ling Huchong nodded his head. Daddy, how about his arm? Ying Ying worriedly said. Ren Woxing laughed and said, Don't worry. My good son-in-law helped Daddy repel that cold energy, so father-in-law will think of a way to cure his arm. After he said this, he laughed loudly and stared at Ling Huchong, studying him. He saw Ling Huchong standing there, looking very embarrassed. Ying Ying said quietly, Daddy, take a rest on speaking these kinds of words. Brother Chong has been friends with Huashan's Miss Yue since childhood, and they've grown up together. The look that Brother Chong was giving young lady Yue, how could it be that you still don't understand? Ren Woxing laughed. What kind of person is that hypocrite, Yue Bu-chun? How can his daughter be compared to my daughter? Also, this girl Yue already has someone else in her heart. From now on, Chang'er will never think of this fickle girl anymore. The matter that happened when you're kids, how can that be allowed? Brother Chong made such a big disturbance at the Shaolin Temple because of me. And the whole world heard about this. Also, because of me, he wasn't willing to go back to Huashan. My heart's already very satisfied over these two matters. There's no need to raise any other talk, Ying Ying said. Ren Woxing was well aware that his daughter liked to win. Since Ling Huchong had not proposed the issue of marriage yet, it was inappropriate to talk about it too much. However, sooner or later, they had to talk about this matter. He again laughed loudly. Very good, very good. We must talk slowly about important lifelong matters. Chang'er, let me tell you the trick to make your arms' meridian passable. He then stood beside Ling Huchong and told him how to move his qi and how to make his meridian passable. He then waited for Ling Huchong to repeat back to him the method to make sure he remembered. He then said, "You helped me repel that poisonous cold energy, and I taught you how to make your meridian smooth. So we don't owe each other anything. You must wait for 7 days before the meridian on your left arm is recovered. You mustn't be impatient." "Yes," Ling Huchong answered. Ren Wuxing waved his hand, calling for Xiang Wenjian and Ying Ying to come over. "Chong-er, that day in Plum Manor on Mount Gu, I invited you to join my Divine Sun Moon sect. At that time, you refused. Today, the situation is very different, and I'm bringing up that old matter again. This time, you can't possibly refuse. You can't possibly refuse with your excuses again." Ling Huchong hesitated and didn't answer. Ren Wuxing said again, "You already studied my art of essence absorbing. Later on, you'll suffer endlessly. Once your various internal energies come out, then you won't be able to save your life. And you won't be able to die either. What I said before, I definitely cannot renege on it. If you don't join my sect, even if Ying Ying married you, I still wouldn't be able to impart to you this melding method. Even if my daughter blamed me for this for the rest of my life, I will still say the same thing. We have an important matter right now. We're going to Dongfang Bubai to settle some debt. Will you follow us?" "Chief, please don't blame me. Junior has decided not to enter the Divine Sun Moon sect." These two sentences were said clearly and very firmly. There was no compromise in his voice. When Ren Wuxing and the other two heard this, their faces changed color. Xiang Wenjian said, "Why is that? You don't have any regards for the Divine Sun Moon sect?" Ling Huchong pointed to the corpses on the snow and said, "There are these kinds of people in the Divine Sun Moon sect. Even though Junior isn't worthy, I'll be ashamed to be associated with them. Also, Junior promised Dingxian Shutai to be the Hangshan School's headmaster." Oh yeah, in case you've forgotten, he's now the headmaster of the Hangshan School. He's now master of a school of nuns. Ren Wuxing, Xiang Wenjian, and Ying Ying all showed a weird expression on their faces when they heard this. Ling Huchong not wanting to enter the sect was not strange at all, but his last sentence was extremely strange. The three people simply couldn't believe what they had heard. Ren Wuxing pointed his finger at Ling Huchong's face. Suddenly, he burst out in laughter, which shook the snow on the trees and made them fall down. He was again caught up in a wave of laughter before saying, "Ha ha! You want to become a nun? Go and become the leader of nuns." Ling Huchong answered unequivocally, "No, not to become a nun, but I'm going to become the Hangshan School's headmaster." Just before Dingxian Shutai died, she requested this of me. If Junior didn't agree, then she would have died with an unfulfilled wish. Dingxian Shutai died because of me. Junior knows that this matter is bound to astonish people when they hear this, but I had no way to refuse it. Ren Wuxing was still laughing non-stop. Ying Ying said, "Dingxian Shutai died because of me." Ling Huchong looked at her and felt appreciative towards her. Ren Wuxing slowly managed to stop his laughter. "If other people requested something of you, you'll always abide by them?" Ling Huchong answered, "Correct. Dingxian Shutai died because she was carrying out my request." "That's also good. I'm an old freak, and you're a little freak. If we don't do something unusual, how can we be great men? You go and become those nuns' headmaster. So, you're going to Hangshan now?" Ling Huchong shook his head. "No, Junior is going to the Shaolin Temple." Ren Wuxing felt that this was a bit strange, but he immediately understood. "You're going to take the two Shutai's corpses back to Hangshan." He then turned his head towards Ying Ying and asked, Are you going to follow Chang'er and go back to the Shaolin temple? No, I'm going to follow Daddy, Ying Ying answered. That's right. It won't do for you to follow him up to Hangchan to become a nun. After he said this, he again laughed loudly. His laughter sounded bitter. Ling Huchang folded his hand in salute and bowed deeply. Chief Ren, Brother Xiang, Ying Ying, we'll part ways here. He turned around and strode purposefully away. After he had walked more than 10 steps away, he turned his head around and asked, Chief Ren, when are you going up to the Darkwood Cliff? Ren Wo-sing answered, This is the sex's internal matter. Outsiders don't need to worry about it. He knew that Ling Huchang asked because he wanted to be there to help him fight Dongfang Bubai together, so he immediately rejected his help. Ling Huchang nodded his head and stooped down to pick up a long sword. He hung the sword on his waist and turned around and then walked away.